In the quaint town of Willow Creek, Emma's family home, a Victorian-style house with a history as old as the town itself, stood isolated at the end of a winding road. Emma, an imaginative and curious young woman, often found herself alone in the house, her parents frequently traveling for work. That fateful night, a storm was brewing, the kind that brought with it an eerie sense of foreboding. Emma, feeling a mix of thrill and unease, decided to explore the attic, a place she seldom ventured into. Amidst the dust-covered relics and old family heirlooms, she found an ancient diary, its pages yellowed with age. It belonged to a girl named Abigail, who lived in the house over a century ago. As Emma began to read, the wind outside grew into a tempest, the house groaning under its force. It was then that the whispers started. Soft at first, like a secret being shared, they seemed to emanate from the walls, echoing Abigail's words from the diary. "Emma, help me," the voice pleaded. It sounded young, desperate, the voice of Abigail herself. Emma, initially fascinated, soon felt a creeping dread. The diary detailed Abigail's lonely life in the house, her words filled with sorrow and fear. The whispers grew more insistent, now forming coherent sentences. They told of dark events, hidden rooms, and tragic ends. Emma tried to dismiss them as figments of her imagination, but the sense of an unseen presence was overwhelming. She ventured through the house, following the whispers, as they led her to a hidden panel in the library. Behind it lay a small, secret room, untouched by time. The room was a shrine to Abigail, filled with her belongings. In the center, a mirror, its surface clouded with age. Emma looked into the mirror and saw not her own reflection, but Abigail's. The ghostly image beckoned her closer, her eyes filled with tears. She spoke of being trapped, unable to leave the house, her spirit bound to its walls. Her father, a man of cruel temperament, had locked her away, hidden from the world until her untimely death. As Emma listened, the room grew colder, the air thick with the weight of unspoken horrors. Shadows flickered in the corners, forming shapes that seemed almost human. The house creaked and moaned, as if reliving its painful past. Abigail's voice became a cacophony of screams, begging Emma to free her. The walls themselves seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy, urging Emma to join Abigail, to become part of the house forever. Terrified, Emma realized she had to break the curse binding Abigail's spirit. She scoured the diary for a solution, her mind racing against the encroaching darkness. The solution lay in a ritual, a way to release Abigail's spirit and bring peace to the house. As Emma began the ritual, the storm outside reached its peak, the house shaking as if in protest. She chanted the words, her voice barely audible over the howling wind and the desperate wails of Abigail. Finally, with a deafening crack, the mirror shattered. The room plunged into darkness. Silence fell, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. When the lights returned, the secret room was empty, the air clear. Emma emerged from the house as dawn broke, the storm subsiding. The whispers were gone, the house at peace. But the memory of Abigail's voice, the secrets of the whispering walls, would stay with her forever, a haunting reminder of the night she faced the horrors hidden within her own home.
In the secluded town of Ravenswood, Mark's family's ancestral home, a Victorian mansion with a foreboding presence, stood isolated at the edge of a dense forest. Mark, a curious and brave teenager, often explored the nooks and crannies of the mansion, But the attic was a place he rarely visited, until that fateful summer. The attic, filled with relics of generations past, held an air of mystery. In the far corner, under a dusty tarp, Mark discovered an antique mirror, its frame intricately carved with symbols that seemed to twist and change when not looked at directly. Initially, the mirror seemed normal, but Mark soon felt a strange sensation, a prickling on the back of his neck, a feeling of being observed. Each time he glanced at the mirror, he caught fleeting movements, shadows that danced just beyond the periphery of his vision. The air around the mirror grew perceptibly colder, a stark contrast to the summer heat. The room seemed to darken, the light dimming as if devoured by the mirror's surface. Mark noticed his reflection began to distort, his image wavering as if underwater. Whispers echoed in the attic, unintelligible at first, but growing clearer over time. They spoke in a language Mark couldn't understand, yet the tone was unmistakable, malicious, threatening. The shadow in the mirror became more pronounced, a dark silhouette standing behind Mark's reflection. It had no face, no discernible features, yet Mark felt its gaze, cold and penetrating. The shadow's movements were slow, deliberate, as if it were learning how to move, how to exist outside its glass prison. Mark's obsession with the mirror began to affect his life. He withdrew from friends and family, his nights plagued by nightmares of the shadow reaching out to him, its touch as cold as ice. Objects in the house started to move on their own, doors slamming shut, windows shattering. Mark's parents were concerned, but he couldn't bring himself to tell them about the mirror. He feared they wouldn't believe him, or worse, that the shadow would turn its malevolence towards them. The turning point came one night when Mark found his reflection in the mirror completely overtaken by the shadow. Its form had become more human-like, but twisted and wrong, a perversion of a human figure. It reached out towards him, its fingers elongating, straining against the mirror's surface. In desperation, Mark covered the mirror, but the whispers grew louder, angrier. The temperature in the room dropped, frost forming on the mirror's surface. The house shook as if in the grip of an earthquake. Realizing the danger he was in, Mark sought help from an old book on the occult he found in the library. The book spoke of mirrors as portals, doorways for entities from other realms. The only way to close the portal was a ritual, but it required confronting the entity. Armed with newfound knowledge, Mark confronted the shadow. The ritual was harrowing, the air filled with the screams of the shadow as it fought against being banished. Mark recited the incantations, his voice unwavering despite the fear that gripped him. Finally, with a sound like thunder, the mirror cracked, the shadow shrieking as it was pulled back into its realm. The room brightened, the oppressive atmosphere dissipating. Mark emerged from the attic, shaken but alive. The mirror was gone, replaced by an empty wall, but the experience left its mark on him. At night, he still hears the faint whispers, the echo of the shadow's presence, a chilling reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be fully closed. The shadow in the mirror became a tale of Mark's courage and a warning of the dangers that lurk in the unseen corners of the world, a haunting blend of psychological and supernatural horror.
In the heart of the countryside, where fields stretched as far as the eye could see, stood Sarah's farmhouse, a picturesque retreat far from the hustle of the city. The old house, with its creaking floors and echoing hallways, had been Sarah's sanctuary, a place for her to write and reflect. But as autumn's chill set in, the house began to reveal its sinister nature. The first sign was subtle, a sense of being watched. Sarah would often pause, feeling eyes on her, but a glance around the room revealed nothing. Then came the footsteps. Soft at first, like a child tiptoeing down the hall, they grew bolder, resonating through the house's empty corridors. objects began to move inexplicably. Sarah would find her writing tools scattered, her books rearranged. One night, a chilling incident shook her to the core. She woke to the sound of her piano playing downstairs, a disjointed, haunting melody that echoed through the silent house. Upon investigating, she found the piano lid closed, the room empty. Whispers would drift through the walls at night, in a language Sarah couldn't decipher. The whispers were fraught with an emotion she could feel, but not understand: sorrow, longing, perhaps anger. The house's temperature would often plummet suddenly, leaving rooms icy cold. Sarah would see her breath in these cold spots, and on occasion, a misty figure appeared, lingering just at the edge of her vision before vanishing. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah set up cameras around the house. The footage revealed shadowy figures moving in the night, objects levitating off tables, and doors slamming shut with no one near them. One particularly harrowing night, Sarah experienced the most terrifying encounter. As she lay in bed, the covers slowly slid off her, as if pulled by unseen hands. A pressure, like someone sitting down, appeared at the foot of her bed. Paralyzed with fear, she could do nothing but watch as the indent on her bedspread moved closer to her, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. In her research, Sarah learned of the house's grim history. It was built upon the grounds of a long-forgotten settlement that had met a tragic fate. A fever had swept through, decimating the population and leaving the settlement abandoned, its suffering inhabitants never laid to rest. The realization dawned on Sarah that these spirits, lost and restless, were bound to this land, their agony imprinted on the very soil. Her home was a beacon for these tormented souls, a vessel for their unresolved anguish. The climax of the haunting came on a stormy night. The house groaned under the weight of the gale, the whispers crescendoed into screams, and the very air seemed charged with despair. Sarah, caught in the eye of this supernatural storm, felt an overwhelming sadness, a deep empathy for these lost souls. In a moment of desperate courage, Sarah spoke to the spirits, acknowledging their pain, offering them peace. As her words filled the house, the tempest abated, the screams dwindled to murmurs, and the air grew warm again. From that night on, the haunting ceased, but the house never felt the same to Sarah. She lived there, respecting its past inhabitants, understanding that she was but a temporary custodian of a place marked by history and tragedy. The unseen visitor thus transformed into a tale not just of terror, but of understanding and coexistence with the echoes of the past, a poignant reminder of the unseen layers of history that surround us.